Cheers, mate.
In the eyes. Always in the eyes.
Always in my eyes.
Always in the eyes. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Well, spilt some. Welcome to another episode of Get It Off Your Chest. This is episode number 4, and we have a very lovely friend of mine, Chris. He's our guest for today. He's got some things to talk about with regards to his fitness journey, his weight loss journey, but also, you know, just in general, we got some other things to talk about all things getting off your chest, right? Chris, what is your full name, first and foremost?
My full name is Chris Thomas Peterson Breistein.
Peterson.
Glad to get that out there.
Yeah.
But it's Chris Breistein now, just due to stage names and making it simple for people. And yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's my first podcast experience, and it makes me feel important right now.
Yeah, you are important, Chris. You are important. So where are you from?
I'm from Norway. I grew up in Bergen, Norway, in a town called Åsane. And I lived there till I was 18 before I took the step and moved to Oslo, the capital of Norway, for the people who might not be aware of where Oslo is. And then I did my bachelor's degree there for 3 years. And then I moved to London and met you at GSA, and you, in that matter.
Producer Anthony.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Yeah.
So essentially, talk to me about like what brought you from doing your bachelor's degree. I take it was performing, right? It was
musical theatre.
Musical theatre, right. So what made you want to come to the UK to study? Because from what I hear is that like Norway still has a very good theatrical scene there, right?
Yeah.
So what brought you over here? Was it to like just train more, or was it to like did you want to just like travel a little bit more in general? Like what was it that brought you over here?
Well, so originally I wanted to be an actor, like most kids do at some point in their life, either that or a ballerina. I feel like it's one of the two. And I went at the age of 16. I did drama in what we call videregående, which is kind of year. I had no idea how this works because you guys use year 8, year 9. And I did some drama then. And we had this thing in the 3 years we were there that we collected money for every show we did. And then at the end of the third year, you'd go to London, and the money that your parents have kind of spent to come see you goes into a pot, and they buy tickets for the biggest musicals, all the shows or the whatever it is at the West End. Nice. And at that time I was like, I don't like musical theatre because I don't like singing. I didn't sing, I didn't dance. I played football and I acted. That was it. And we then came to England. I was 16 at the time, and we went to see Phantom, which was the first show that they'd booked. And I remember going, right, what kind of snacks do we have? Because this is going to be a snooze fest. And I bought all the Maltesers and all the classic English treats, and obviously didn't touch any of them because I was absolutely gobsmacked by what was going on that stage. And because I was kind of impacted by that, when I then went to Oslo to kind of leave my family behind in Bergen, which is an 8-hour drive away from Oslo, I had that in mind that I've just started singing. I want to be good at this. But the whole point of me starting this was because I saw this West End production, and that's where it was at. So when I finished in Norway, there's about, 5-6 million people in the whole entire country. So in Oslo alone, don't quote me on this, but I don't know how many people, let's say 1 million for the sake of it. Yeah. Every single musical and play that's done in Norway is done in Norwegian. So because I'd listened to all the original soundtracks in English, in American, and seen all these shows in the West End, that's to me what the musical theatre should be about. And everything in Norway is done in Norwegian, which means you'll have Norwegians watching your show, not internationally. So people don't go to Norway to watch a musical because it's not in their language. So when I finished my degree in Norway, I kind of felt like you got to keep going whilst you're at it. So I could have then started my journey in Oslo, but I felt like I wanted to go all the way, which is the reason why I started. So because GSA at the time was collaborating with Borda, which was the school I trained in Norway, I thought this was the time for me to audition for them at least. And if I got in, might as well go for it. It's another 3 years. So here I am, could have been a doctor, but guess what? I know how to do step clicks and So that's why I kind of took that leap. And it was a tough time for me because I had to leave behind a lot of my friends and family, and also leave country to a country that I knew nothing about. But yeah, essentially, long story short, that's why I went all the way to London and didn't stay in Norway.
Did you feel like there was a risk involved? Was there ever like anything in your mind that kind of went, what if this doesn't go to plan? Like when it comes to something like that, because it is, I mean, you seem like the path that you had taken was like very driven, and it was, you know, logical in the sense that you felt like you were good at something, but you wanted to progress it to be the very best. But something like moving further away from your family first and foremost, and then moving even further away again, like what risk did you feel when you decided to like do that?
It was a high risk, but I think one of the things that I've always think about, and I'm always grateful for, is my upbringing. My mum and dad, not once, even though I question myself now, not once did they ever stop and say, "Are you sure about this? Have you thought about what might happen if this doesn't go to..." Not once has my mum and dad said that. And my mum and dad is so far away from performing as you can get. My dad can't step click to save his life, can't sing. My mum plays some instruments and does some singing, but there's no performance related, you know, work or anything like that in my family. So because they never questioned me, I never had a reason to go, what is the risk ratio here? Like, I moved away from home to go to Oslo and I loved it. The step from Oslo to London, however, was a tough one because, you know, when you're at school, right, and you grow up, you have friends, but are they your friends because they happen to live in your neighborhood or because you have stuff in common? So my friends from childhood, love them to bits, but some of them I'm not in touch with anymore because we simply grew up in the same proximity. We didn't have the same interests. We just happened to go to the same school, played for the same football team, but we weren't actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I then went to Oslo, I was paired up with people like me from their cities. So you were always the lead in your musical. Well, guess what? You all come together. You can't all be the lead anymore. So you kind of get hit in the head straight away. And my accent in Norwegian is kind of harsh, and I'm blunt as a person. We are, as Scandinavians. So I kind of, you know, walked into my first lesson and got kind of punched in the face, so to speak, by the way people perceived me. I came across rude straight away, and I went, hang on, I've never had that before. And when I left after the 3 years in Oslo, I'd made friends for life. So when I realized that I was kind of the only one taking that step to go to a different country and continue, I realized I then had to leave behind that group of people that I did everything with. Like, we went skiing, we went across, you know, to different countries and did musicals together. So that was probably the first time I openly cried in front of anyone, including mum, dad, any girlfriends or anything like that. It's the first time I openly cried. It was the last night in Oslo before I knew I was flying to London to start my new life, because I knew that as much as everyone was going, "Oh, we'll come see you, oh, we'll still stay in touch," we all know that if you really think about it, that isn't going to happen. And yeah, that was the toughest time at that moment in time. I was 20, 21?
Yeah.
And then obviously going across a different country, different language, different way of living. You know, the houses are different. They're cold over here. They're not made of wood. You know, it was a big change. So yeah, there was a risk involved, but I never once stopped and thought money. I never thought, what if it doesn't work out? Because it was such a strong passion of mine, still is, to do so.
Yeah.
So the problem was leaving behind friends and loved ones.
Yeah. There was pain in the decisions that you were taking, sacrifices as it were, like, and you feel like you understood that level of sacrifice that you were taking. But at the same time, you know, between say 18 to say 24, that's when you have, I would arguably say, like a big transition in your life. In terms of, like, you know, you go from schooling to probably the last stage of schooling to adulthood, and like doing something as big as what you did. You seem to be like, from a young age, you seem to be like emotionally intelligent enough to understand like what it is that you wanted to do and what that cost almost. So yeah, credit to you, man.
I think the biggest thing that still is in my head to this day, my mum and dad never ever said, "What are you doing? Are you sure?" Which even me now, if I have a child in the future, I will probably say them words.
Yeah.
If they say, "I want to be like you," I'd be like, "Do you?" And my mum and dad never once said that, which I always say to them, thank you so much for just sticking by me, even though I was this, you know, small kid from a small town in Norway wanting to be this, you know, Western performer. But my mum always did say, "Go for gold. You're the best." She still says I'm the best one in the world, of course. Like, I'm better than anyone, which isn't always true. But she always says that. And I remember she said to me, "Whatever you do, don't let any girl hold you back. If you're leaving home and you're leaving me and your father and you go into a different place where we're going to have to fly or drive for ages to see you, don't ever come back to me and said you're not pursuing that anymore because you met a girl." And that still stands by me today.
I think that's fair. Like, essentially, there's nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with like you pursuing what you want to pursue as your own person, because you are you as an individual. The person that you're with sometimes can change those things naturally, but ultimately, if you still want to, say, for example, work in a profession that you want to work in, no relationship should ever like get in the way with that, especially like if it's not a serious relationship either, so yeah, I completely get that. Okay, cool. So we known each other from GSA, like when we were there for 3 years. Honestly, I'd still say mistakes were made, but they were still the best 3 years some of the best years of my life for sure. But yeah, describe to me about like how you enjoyed that, or like your experience just briefly on like GSA and then like shortly thereafter as well.
Yeah, coming to England first off was a big thing. I'd been to England a few times before, but we're talking, I went to Scarborough of all places at one point, which was part of this school exchange thing, and you had to live with like not foster parents, but like a foster home type of thing. So it'd be kind of like digs now if you're on tour, where you'd live with these strangers that would just house you, which was strange. And yeah, I spent a week there, but I was ill the whole time, so I can't really remember much, from it. And then went to London. So coming to England, knowing that I brought my luggage, whatever I could fit on the airplane, really, because I couldn't be bothered going back and forth. And that was your new life for 3 years. And I just had my tonsils removed, finishing in Oslo, because they were just getting inflamed all the time. And yeah, basically there's a rule saying you have to have, 8 tonsillitis proven a year, whatever, before you get the operation. Yeah. So my first time performing in front of people at GSA, which you might remember that we had to do the first day in front of your fellow peers, you like pick a song, any song. And I just had my tonsils removed. So I was like, I've never sung without my tonsils. Yeah, and people be like, oh, there's not going to be any difference. But there is, because there's so much more air coming through now, because I don't have these massive chunks of, things in my throat. So that was interesting. And I remember still to this day, which you might remember as well, where it was in a different language and they were asking me questions. And I was like, I have to sing this song. And I remember just like crumbling to the ground, going like, I'm shaking. Like I was so nervous, considering I'd done that for 3 years already. And I was 3 years older than most people in that room. Yeah. But I'd just seen some 18-year-olds absolutely smash it out the park, where I was going, I have 3 years ahead of these guys and they are so good. And some of them looked like Jean Valjeans and Eva Perrons. And I was like, you're 18. How am I supposed to go up and sing in front of these guys?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and, then going home after school and going to your house, because we rented a house at the time, because we were too old to be doing this whole dorm thing, not happening. So I moved over with 2 of my Norwegian friends, because they also went to GSA at the same time as me, and it was the best decision I made, really, because we had some great times. And I don't know if you remember, but all the parties in first and second year and maybe third year happened at our house, because everyone else was in, dorms or didn't have.
He was also close to Spoons as well, I remember.
Very close to Spoons.
Yeah. The magical place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you stayed together like in that house, not in that house. Was it that house?
No.
You stayed together though as a unit for 3 years. At that time, so that was always fun.
Well, I think it was Anthony's year. Someone left 13 Walnut Tree Close because they finished GSA, and we then got in touch with them saying, "Hey, is anyone else renting this after you?" And they got us in touch with the landlord, and we basically took over from them because it was a place we really wanted to go to or to live, because it was right next to the train station and right next to the Spoons. So 1 year we stayed in Manor Road, which was next to the PC World and the Frankie and Benny's and the gym, and then we went to 13 Walnut Tree Close, which was a lot closer to town and everything. So yeah, 1 year there and 2 years there. And we stayed together as 3, because we had a great time together. Some great memories of what we got up to and stuff we did. But yeah, no, I think the hardest change for me coming to England was just buying a pint of milk. I was like, what is this brand? What does this do? Why does this taste weird? And, the carpet. Why is the carpet like brown, yellow, ugly, snotty green? And just, why is the carpet in the toilet? There shouldn't be a carpet in the toilet. What if I miss the bowl and pee on the side? How am I going to make sure that that's wiped up properly? Like, yeah, that was probably the biggest changes for me. And you remember when I started at GSA, I wanted to fit in so badly, in the sense that I didn't want people to go, oh, you must be foreign. Yeah. It was my number one pet peeve when people were like, yeah, but you're foreign. I'd be like, stop saying that. Because if I have that when I finish this semester, I finished, the 3 years at GSA, and every casting director goes, yeah, but you're foreign. At the time, there was no Frozen musical, so what was I going to play? There was no Olaf to play or no yoo-hoo. Big summer blowout. So at the time, I was like, I'm doing my best here to get rid of my Norwegian accent so that I don't have that, like, thing dragging behind me.
I think there's something now to be almost proud of it, though, as well. And not say, I think you speak very well, in terms of, I'm not like, what's that coach? In Marfait Lady, where they
oh yeah,
elocution or something like that. Basically, yeah, I think you speak very well for like someone who is from Norway, but you wouldn't think that you are from that based on how you talk. But then at the same time, I've always thought that of you, and I've known you for like 10 years anyway.
Yeah. I mean, everyone said that, but they thought it was a compliment at the start.
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Oh, your English is so good." I'd be like, as opposed to not being good because I'm foreign. Do you know what I mean? And I know it's a compliment, and I know that people meant it in a good way. But I was like, I'm here to be able to dance, sing, and act, and look the part, or whatever they might need me to do in that room.
Not to be judged on the fact that you are like Norwegian first.
Yeah, and kudos to the GSA team for the vocal coaches, and also kudos to myself, I must say, for how much I actually studied to actually record myself and listen back and speak to these guys to be like, can you help me get rid of this accent? Because I go into audition rooms now and they don't know until they look at my resume. They go, oh, holy cow, you're Norwegian.
Yeah.
What happens is people ask me whereabouts I'm from because they can't necessarily place me, but they don't say, you must be from Scandinavia. As long as they think I'm from some country or some place that does speak English as a first language, that's fine with me. And most of the time, they might need me to speak American anyway, so they might need me to speak a different kind of English. I don't know. So I think that was my biggest hurdle, and I didn't want to be put in that pit where it was like, you're Norwegians and you're French and we're English.
Yeah.
Which is why it was such a big thing for me to get into GSA Singers.
Yeah.
Because when I started GSA, there was this thing about no foreigner had ever gotten into GSA Singers, which first off was, to me, which was bad at the time, but I was thinking, well, it must be because we don't speak English well enough, or because we have different, I don't know, but I just thought that was my goal. I want to be the first foreigner to get into GSA Singers, and I did, which was great. But yeah, and that was something that was just kind of like a weight on my shoulders, that I was always the foreign guy. So I'd do something well, and the teachers or my fellow peers would be like, you did so well considering you're Norwegian.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, you did so well, considering you have one eye. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, but that's not what we're comparing it to. Just say I did well and let's leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Would you say now that you see your, I'm guessing you're proud of your heritage and you're proud of where you come from. So do you now see it as less of a pressure on you? Or do you still feel that pressure?
As in pressure in what sense?
Do you put the pressure on yourself to sound more English or to sound less Norwegian, should we put it that way? Do you feel less of a pressure now? Are you more open to the... Because, I think as we get older and as you grow in the industry, you realise that what you have, the things that make you unique are fantastic. So I think that's one of the bad sides of drama school, is they do try and force you into the same funnel as everyone else so that you all come out looking exactly the same, sounding exactly the same. Whereas actually your strength is that you could walk into a voiceover booth tomorrow doing an English part or an American part, and then an engineer could be like, okay, well, we've got these bloody Norwegian lines. You'd be like, well, I'm Norwegian, so I can do it. Do you find that as this, you have a strength that other actors don't have rather than a weakness than, do you know what I mean?
Do you see it as an advantage to a certain degree? Like at any point?
I thought once I'd kind of mastered the English side of things, of at least sounding English or American, that would be an advantage. But you'd be surprised. A lot of the times when I get something through that is required to be in a Norwegian accent or to be a Norwegian, and I'd be like, I'm blonde, I'm blue-eyed, I can speak Norwegian, I can speak Swedish, that would surely be my part. No, there's loads of us. So it doesn't matter. I've been sent through so many things, Netflix things and all this. It's a Norwegian part. He has to speak Norwegian for a little bit. Then he speaks English in a broken English accent. And I'm terrible at speaking English in a broken Norwegian accent because I've tried to get rid of it for so long. So it ends up with them going, no, can I have more Norwegian from you? And I'd be like, no, you can't, apparently, because I've just shoved it so far back. So, and there's not once in my life so far where someone's gone, oh, brilliant, you're Norwegian. Let's do this as well. Not once. And I think it's gone to that point, like we spoke about earlier before we started the program, that they're so specific in what they want that your extra skills don't matter. I feel like my extra skills have come into play once I've got the job, where they go, oh, we might as well do that then. Like when we did Twang, the director went, well, this is where you do the cabaret bit, so I need you to do something German. And I'll be like, well, I do speak some German. And he'd be like, great. Well, make up something on the spot. And I'd be like, right. So I just made up some German words, which turned out to be, I've just made my bed, which the director didn't know. And that's what I said. And I remember the director texting me or emailing me a few years later saying, could you send me what you said in German so I can put it in the actual script? Because he was working on the new. And I was like, I'm not going to lie. What I actually said was that I have a massive thing.
You can say it.
I have a massive dick and I just made my bed. Those were the exact lines and words I said. But no one ever questioned me because they didn't know. So he was like, right. And I don't know if he actually put it in the end or not, but it would be in the original score of Twang, if it is in still. But I have a feeling he might have changed that a little bit. But yeah, so back to that. I think it's not as beneficial as you'd think. And also because Norwegians and Scandinavians in general are very good at English. Very rarely would you be asked to do something in that sense because of that. And some jobs that I've had, it works in the sense of I have it on my resume, but I'm not actually using it.
Right.
So.
In terms of like work that you've done since GSA, like just give us a brief history of like that so far, and we're going to get into fitness from thereafter, I believe. So like talk to me in terms of like you finished GSA, the first few years, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I finished GSA, and at the time, I bumped into a really rough time just as I was about to graduate because my mum was really successful throughout all my life. She was a hairdresser. She still is to some extent, but she's got arthritis, so it's kind of hard to cut when you've got bare claws to get your hands through the scissors. And so what happened was she called me, I remember, it was about a week before we graduated, and she said, something's happened, I've gone bankrupt, which meant that everything had to go. My childhood home, our house, everything we had to go. And she'd kindly helped me about 2 or 3 months prior to that, saying, I'm going to give you a chunk of money that you can use to kind of buffer your loan a little bit. Because in Norway, we don't have this thing that you guys have where it's like, if you don't earn this amount of money, you don't have to pay your loan back. No, in Norway, it's like sink or swim.
Yeah.
So it's like you get 6 months after you graduate. If you graduate, they'll give you some discount on what you owe them because it kind of helps the country that you are well educated. If you don't, you have to pay all of it back. But in 6 months, we'll start taking money out of your account. You can choose if that's going to be over 25 years or 20 or 15. Obviously, the amount will grow depending on how much time you set the loan to be repaid by. So 6 months after, I knew that I was going to be living in London. I was going to be paying my loan back, and it was basically sink or swim. So my mum called me and said, I've gone bankrupt. I need everything I can get at the moment. So I had to send her back every single penny of what she'd helped me with. And my 3 years at GSA, I didn't really work. I kind of worked on, what we were doing. And when I went home for my breaks, I did some work at the cinema, which I used to work at in Bergen. But apart from that, I didn't really work. So I didn't really have much money saved up. I just had the money that my mum had helped me with at that moment in time. So all the money had to go back. I had £0 to my name, and I was about to graduate in London along with thousands of other graduates from other schools, and we were all going to go, let's compete and try and get these parts. And to top it all off, I was Norwegian, I had no family over here, so on and so forth. So at the time, I was very lucky. I had 2 offers on the table when I finished college. One was for a lead singer on a cruise ship, and one was for a lead part in a pantomime. As we know, pantomimes only work over the Christmas season, and then you're unemployed again. Yeah. So I thought, right, I had a chat with my agent, and we kind of decided that the cruise ship was the best way to go. A, for experience. You get to sing a lot of big songs in front of lots of people, but you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, so you can kind of work on your craft and kind of perfect that a little bit. And then come back and be ready for the big world and have some money in your pocket. So basically from that on, in a year, I'd do 8 months on a cruise ship, and then I'd do about 6 months or maybe 5 months off. And the reason for that was because I wanted to go and audition, have my face in the room so that they knew that I was alive, so that I didn't just disappear. Yeah. But essentially over the 5 years, I decided that because the cruise ship company was willing to give me a job off of the last one without having to see me again, and the money would increase every time because you're kind of being rehired with the same company. I knew all the ins and outs of what you needed to do when you weren't on stage on the cruise ship, which is a big part of the cruise ship job. I was already away from my family and friends, so being in London or being in, the middle of the Caribbean doesn't really make much of a difference apart from the fact that I'm earning good money. I get to perform. I get to see the world. And yeah, I get to be in a warm place.
It's a good gig.
A great gig, yeah. And I thought, you know, if I save up some money here, I can then stay in London for the rest of my life. And I remember my agent got in touch and said, listen, this is great. However, we didn't put you on our books to be on a cruise ship. We want you to be in the West End. We want you to be touring. We want you to be doing these things. And I said, I do get that, but hear me out. I am at the time, a 24-year-old Norwegian man who has no family over here. My family has no money to be giving me because circumstances have changed. If I don't do these cruise ships at the moment in time, I don't know how long I can last for in a city like London before it swallows me whole. Yeah. And I then have to put the tail between my legs and go back to Norway because I can't afford to try it as a performer. And they understood that, luckily, and they were really like, you know, they were helpful in that sense. And they were like, fine, you do what you got to do and then let's carry on. Because I said, I want to do this for the rest of my life. It's not a 5-year thing and then just, you know, that's it. Yeah. So I did essentially 5 years on and off cruise ships, did some gigs in between, the Jersey Boys kind of things that I do with the other guys, which I'm very grateful for because of the fact that it is, you know, performing and it is earning some money whilst doing so. So 5 years with that. And then I finished my last cruise ship where I decided that this was going to be my last one. And my first audition, keep in mind, loads of auditions, 500, 600 auditions, never got any of them. Came off the ship. First audition I had, I got the job. So we're talking November of 2019. Got the job straight away. And I went, this is exciting. I was going to do HMS Pinafore with Sasha Regan, which I was really excited about. We were 2 days away from rehearsals and someone said something about this COVID thing that we might have to wait a week with this rehearsal schedule. I'd got the touring. I'd quit all my jobs, was ready to go. And yeah, as we know, COVID is still a thing 3 years later. So I never actually got to do that job. But during the lockdown times, I still were lucky enough to have jobs that would give me money and over Zoom and over different things. And whilst we were in COVID and we were locked in, locked out, so on and so forth, I was auditioning for other things via self-tapes. And when COVID then kind of opened again, I had finals. Basically, I got, a 12-hour warning that you're in tomorrow for finals again, which was the third time in finals for the same show because they'd kind of gone, we're good to go. COVID again, we're good, yeah. And I went in and I did my finals and I got the job. And I then did the UK Tour of School of Rock, which finished in August 2022. Yeah. Just 2 months ago. Yeah. And basically, that was also a time when the HMS Pinafore resurfaced and said, Chris, let's do it.
Nice one.
And I went, unfortunately, I can't now because I've got a 12-month gig that I've signed for. And I think they went ahead and did HMS Pinafore without me as part of it. And I think a lot of the lads that were originally supposed to be in that production couldn't then do it.
Because they moved on. I mean, there was a lot of time that had passed. I mean, some people probably would have left the industry during that period of time.
100%.
But then, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I then finished School of Rock, and that's about 2 months ago now. And here we are. So that's about, 8 years after graduating. So I've worked every single year since graduating, but a lot of it was traveling the world as a cruise ship singer.
You created a foundation for yourself. You know, you've bought a flat as well in London, in Dartford, so just outside of London.
Southeast London,
Southeast London. So you can, access, and like you said earlier, you wanted to make sure that you had a foundation so that you could be here for the rest of your life, or for the rest of your career at least, to work on your craft and actually progress your career. So, credit to you for that. Talk to me about lockdown and the journey that you went through with that, because I know a bit about it. I feel like it was quite transformative for you in a lot of areas. But talk to me about your weight loss journey, because you went through a little bit of a journey there, didn't you, with regards to it? I think I had a stalk of your Instagram about the other day, and at the top of it, because you're a PT as well, right? You said that you lost 15 kilograms during that period of time, which is 15 kilograms in about 16 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Some good going. Talk to me about that. How did that go for you?
Yeah, so lockdown, like you said, is probably going to be a time that we all remember for as long as we are living, but for many different reasons. And fortunately for me, lockdown is probably one of the most fondest memories I have of my life, which is crazy to think because it was so bad for so many people, unfortunately. But so I left Norway at the age of, not Norway, I left Bergen at the age of 18. So at that time, my metabolism hadn't kicked in yet the way it is. You know, I was still living off of the whole, I'm young, fat would just not stick to me type of thing. Although I still had a complex about my body. I always thought I was bigger than the others because I was, but I wasn't fat, but I thought I was at the time. And because all my friends were just, you know, skinny.
Yeah.
And I left Oslo and I left Bergen and went to Oslo. And that was the first time I was like, right, you're on your own. So I had to go into a shop on my own and go, what do I pick up? What do I make? And I remember walking in going, oh, I can get 5-pack of noodles for £1.50. Yeah, let's do it. Noodles are good. I just had noodles. And I remember my fellow friends in Oslo, they were like, Chris, you do know that has no nutrition in it. And I was like, what do you mean? It's £1.50. It will last me for 5 days. Let me get on with my life. I'd down like 3 liters of Coca-Cola a day because I loved Coca-Cola. Why not? And I went from being this kind of not skinny, but slightly bigger teenager to being 110 kilograms. Now, I don't know what that is in stone, but it's a big lad. It's a big guy. And I kind of stopped at one point, looked at myself in the mirror and went, I don't see the problem. And all my friends were kind of like, well, Chris is the singer. He's not the dancer guy. And that was fine. Then I went to London and I started second year at GSA. And second year at GSA, the principal at the time sat me down and sat everyone down and said, what do you want to be? Like, why are you here? After 3 years at GSA, what's the part you can see yourself playing? And I went off, all the big parts, all the leads. And he went, okay, perfect. You do realize at this moment in time, there is not a scoop chance in hell that you're going to play any of them parts. And I went, pardon? Why not? And he went, because at the moment now, you're an Elder Cunningham / Dewey Finn type of character, which is a slightly bigger people, which is not offensive because we are cast for how we look. And at the time, I didn't take that as an offense, but I kind of went, hang on, is that how you see me? And he went, well, you are a bigger lad. You're not going to play Elder Price. You're not going to play Jean Valjean or Phantom, even if you are good enough, because you don't look that way. They're not going to put you in that costume. And, you know, a lot of people have gone, how dare he? And I've gone, no, that actually is what changed me. Because at the time, I had no problem with my self-image or no problem with the way I looked. So I then went, right, what do I got to do? Well, I got to lose weight. I got to look like the part, which makes sense. I was like, I've spent all this time trying to sound English, sing, dance, and act. So I'm not going to go through the 3 years paying 20K a year, 60K in debt. And then the guy goes, you're perfect, but you're too big. Yeah. So I then went, right. So that summer, I don't know if you remember that summer, I went home and I kind of just, you know, did what everyone does. I Googled, how do I get skinny? And I just started eating better. And it was quite simple for me. The bigger you are, the easier it is to kind of lose weight unless you have some kind of medical condition that tells you otherwise. But I was just like, I cut out the Coca-Cola, change it for a diet. Already there, 3 liters a day, you can do the math yourselves. We're talking hundreds of calories here and hundreds of grams of sugar that just disappeared from my diet. Started eating chicken and salad and all that stuff. Didn't restrict myself in that sense, but healthier. Came back to GSA, I'd lost a lot of weight from the 110 kg. People were then like, wow. So from that moment on, I started going to the gym regularly, didn't have a program, didn't have a PT, didn't stick to anything in that sense. I just was more healthy and ate better. Then finished GSA, and all of a sudden I got a cruise ship job. Now, I would have never, ever gotten that offer if my principal didn't say to me or made me aware that you're a bigger person.
Yeah.
And I then had to lose some weight. Because the cruise ship companies at that moment in time, I don't know how it is now, they're very much looking for people who look like fitness people. That's just the way it works. So I wouldn't have got that job if it wasn't. And every single job I have done since I finished college has been because of the way I look.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's to do with my talent as well, but none of the jobs that I've had so far, I spent 12 months just now as Theo in School of Rock, topless, oiled up with tattoos on my body, showing my abs.
Yeah.
Go back to GSA, Chris, there was no abs there, far from it. And there is no way they would have put me in that tight leather vest if it wasn't for that. So yeah, finished that. And then lockdown came around. The lockdown came around, we were looking at me, I don't know, I'll be in about 95 kg maybe. I wasn't a big lad in that sense. I had some muscle on my body and stuff. And I moved in to the house that I was living with 5 other people. And one of the people in there was a PT. And she kind of, helped me see certain things in a different way. And she didn't, impose anything on me. But I kind of went, how do you lose weight in that sense? And she was like, well, you got to make sure of what you put in your body is measured in some way. And that you obviously are consistent. So I then decided that, right, this is my time. I'm very interested in fitness and health. I have been for a few years, but I don't actually know what I am doing. So I decided, let's become a PT. I can do that. I have time on my hands now because it's lockdown. So let's go for it. So I read every book under the sun before I actually enrolled with getting the actual degree because it actually interested me. I feel like a lot of people become a PT for the sense of I have now a degree that I can charge people for, but I don't actually care.
Yeah.
For me, I was actually interested in how it worked, or how it's science. So then I went through this journey in lockdown where I just basically tracked my calories, very, very, rigid. And it didn't actually faze me. A lot of people say, oh, eating less is making me sad. At the start, it didn't actually faze me that much. But then I got towards, the lower calorie zones, and you kind of have other implications coming in. And I chatted to you throughout the start of the process, being like, this is happening, this is weird, what is this for? And you helped me out with that. And I was kind of, getting to that point where it was having implications in my life where I wasn't having energy, I wasn't feeling the lust for doing anything, and I just wanted to eat. And as you said there, that 15 kg I lost during that time, and I think my cut was not 12 weeks, it was months.
Yeah.
And that's when it gets tricky. And that's when I then decided that, you know what, I need help because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going off of the degree that I've just taken, but I'm performing it on myself. So I have no one to talk to. I spoke to my girlfriend at the time, and she helped me a lot. But because she was my girlfriend, I also felt like it's not going to help any of us if she's my therapist as well. Yeah. So I then reached out to you. Yeah. And said, listen, man, you've done this. You're the main reason why I've decided to go on this cut, because I saw your amazing journey, and I know that you're a PT and you've been a PT longer than I have, and you have loads of clients and you've helped them. So I went, I needed help. And not only were you a friend, but also a professional. And that is probably one of the smartest things I've ever done. The fact that you could see it from a different perspective and you weren't in the same headspace as I was is what made all the difference. I remember distinctly there was a time I was at work, I could not be bothered because I hadn't eaten, I hadn't had a poo for 3 days, and the weight wouldn't drop. And I was texting you non-stop going, listen, you're my PT, what's going on? Like, the scale isn't going under 70 kg. Keep in mind I came from 110. My scale isn't going under 70 kg. I feel rubbish. I haven't had a poo for 3 days. Could it be that? And you were basically just, reassuring me that this is part of the process, this is how it works. Before you know it, it will just drop and you'll go, whoa, what happened?
The whoosh effect.
Yeah, and you said, tomorrow you might step on that scale and you might be heavier. It's the way the cookie crumbles. You just got to stick with it. And you gave me all the tips and advice that I needed to kind of stay in that moment. And I honestly think that if you weren't there for me to go, this is bullshit, and to be like, just calm down and, keep going, I probably would have quit it. Like, I would have gone, you know what, give me that chocolate or give me that whatever. And, looking back on the pictures today, they're insane. Like, the way that I look on them pictures and everyone going, you look amazing. But people would have seen me going from, here's a picture of me just in my garden, to photo shoot, oiled up, boom, and no idea the amount of things that happen along the way. Yeah. And a lot of people might not be aware that when you get to the lower parts of body fat percentage, you're looking at your libido is low. You don't fancy anything else but food. Anyone who says anything to you at the right or wrong time, you will go, shut up, because you're just irritated. Yeah. And I had some jobs that was requiring me to be quite happy and chatty and, energetic. And I had none of them three capabilities towards the end.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, what you've described is like, in total, you're looking at from beginning to end, and now, we're past that point, but it was 40 kilograms that you'd lost, right? Nearly half your body weight. That's massive. But the key was in the beginning of what you mentioned was that, the first thing that you noticed about doing it when you were starting your weight loss journey was not even thinking about calculating macros or tracking calories and stuff like that. It was just starting from a habit-based approach of just replacing Coca-Colas with Diet Colas, or just drinking a little bit more water, or actually just adding in and being inclusive in your diet of like going, you know what, instead of eating just snacks, I'm just going to eat like chicken and salad. Those simple habits alone, from starting from someone like who was like overweight, can have a drastic effect on how they can be successful in their weight loss journey. And then you went into the hard part. The harder part is pretty much like dieting, not from that point, but dieting to the point where you get really lean, right? Really lean, like photoshoot lean, the stuff that you see in like Men's Health magazine, all that kind of stuff. That's what you did. And that was during lockdown, right? Essentially, you're right. You need that form of accountability. You need that because from a physiological point of view, your hunger hormones are going to be shooting all over the shop. And it doesn't matter, like, if you have a girlfriend who's a PT, it doesn't matter if you have a best friend who's a PT. Ultimately, your body is telling you, I do not want to do this anymore. And you have to kind of find ways to get past it as well, and find tactics to get past it. And that's why having a coach that is an expert in helping people like that can prove helpful during those periods of time, because otherwise you're most likely going to succumb to what you naturally are going to do. You're starving yourself at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean,
it's, for me, I always say this, you know, like people say, you know, a PT, I don't need one because all you got to do is go to the gym and have that salad. And then you go, listen, there's so much more to that. And if I say to people this, if I say, well, you want to earn 100K by the end of this year, what if I told you that can be done in a straight line where you can see the end target? You just got to follow a few pinpoints along the way and you will get close to that target. Or you can decide to not get that help and I will turn off the light and you're going to have to try and find the light switch. And then you walk around in circles until you get there. And then you might get there in the end, but it's taking you 3 times the amount of time that what it would have taken if you just got that help in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. I mean, having a coach is invaluable, regardless, right? But then it's making sure that you have the right coach with the right training program and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. Talk to me, I would say tail end of that part of your weight loss journey now, your training, your nutrition, cardio, if you could give like bullet points of what you were doing, just to kind of give an insight to those that might be listening in as to if they wanted to get into photoshoot shape, what kind of things were you doing towards the end of it? Because it wasn't the whole time, but what was you doing towards the end?
Towards the end of it, I was on 1,600 calories. Now, for anyone who has ever seen a calorie in that sense would know how low that is for a man who is weighing, well, at the time, 70 kg around that time. And I was trying to get 8 hours of sleep in a day, which is the recommended dosage you should get. Keep in mind, doesn't matter how tired you are at the end of the day, you cannot get 8 hours of sleep in when you are that lean, because your body, we're hunter-gatherers. Our bodies was the same 100 years ago as it is today. Your body is telling you to get up and go get some food. You have no fat stored left in your body, so you're not going to survive for long. We need fats to stay alive, otherwise you will die, which essentially means that your body is telling you that you are dying because you're losing so much fat. The body isn't saying, you look great, keep going. The body don't care. The body wants you to stay alive, which is why the lust for having sex, the lust for having a pint or other things goes away, because your body says, let's focus on you staying alive first. So 8 hours of sleep are recommended, 10,000 steps a day, get your workouts in. However, when you've been tearing on your metabolism for so long, your metabolism starts to slow down because your body's trying to make you stay alive. So what happens is your body, all of a sudden, with you doing 45 minutes of cardio and 60 minutes of weightlifting, doesn't have the same effect as it did when you were 110 kg. So I was doing 6 times a week at the gym. That was an hour of weightlifting, 45 minutes on the Stairmaster every single day. On the 7th day, God said you should rest. I did not rest. I then did an hour on the Stairmaster with no weightlifting. That was my recovery day.
Yep.
So every day was around this, and I decided to walk to the gym every day to get some extra steps in, which was about an hour each way. Now, because I was on 1,600 calories and because I didn't want to stab myself in the face, I decided to then intermittent fasting. So I decided that I wasn't going to eat until I'd done my gym session, my walk, my 45 minutes of Stairmaster to an hour. So what happened was my first meal sometimes was at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Now, is that healthy, do you ask? No. Is it needed to get in photoshoot shape for my sake? Yes, it was. You can eat in the morning whenever you fancy, but on 1,600 calories, we're talking a grain of rice to make sure that you can last. So I would then go to the gym, come back. That was all I did. I had no more energy to do anything else. I still, at the time, managed to go to work because I had to, because it was locked down and I kind of had to earn some money. But you're just going to have to bite your tongue and go for it. And your stomach is rumbling and you feel like you're going to die. And what helped me was little things like chewing gum. I had more chewing gum and ate more chewing gum than any man ever should, or woman, just because that gave my body the sense that you were eating something, which you obviously weren't. And I got the 0 sugar gum that was, 7 calories for the whole pack. Yeah. Sleep-wise, because you're so low in energy, you can't sleep. No. I'd go to bed every night giving me a pat on the back for making myself get to bedtime. Because anyone who's done a cut will know getting to bedtime is a victory because you haven't, gone into the cupboard and gone, just give me some food. So that is a victory in itself. So that was essentially what it was all about, just getting to the end of the day.
Yeah, it literally is a time lapse, isn't it? Just to get to the end of the day. Whenever you are digging from, say, a 12% body fat down to 10%, and then you're getting leaner than that, that's when, from a man's perspective, your physiological levels start to like deplete massively. Yep. So you're going to be less horny, you're going to be functioning less as a human being, right? Yep. You're going to be just food focused to fuck. Like you are just going to be so focused on food. You're not even going to be necessarily hungry, you're just going to be focused on food.
Yep.
And then, yeah. But at the same time, when you get to that point, you also kind of see that the end is in sight. So going to stepping up your training to like 7 days a week, pretty much doing cardio every single day, getting your steps in, it becomes that mundane routine that you kind of know that robotically, if I do this, I will be successful. But from anyone who's starting out on a fitness journey or who wants to lose a lot of weight, they don't have to get to that point first. But if you do want to get into photo shoot shape thereafter, you by God, you will have to do some drastic things like delay your first meal up until that point. You don't have to do that, but it depends on what your work schedules is and stuff like that, and whatever works for you. But you do have to think, what tactics can I employ that is going to be realistic for me to stick to, and so that I can get through it in a right manner, that I can actually go, great, I did what I needed to do, you know?
Yeah, and I think for me personally, what I would say to anyone out there who's thinking about the fitness journey in general, doesn't matter if you're talking photo shoot or if you're talking just get a healthier lifestyle. The reason why it is so important to have a PT or a coach to help you along the way is because it isn't a game. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I did a cut for way too long. You're supposed to do around 12 weeks as recommended before you kind of gone back to maintenance, and then you can continue. The thing is, you need someone to control these weeks and control what you're eating and what's going on by you just simply saying how you're feeling. Because as a PT, we can tell that this is the time for you to do a deload week. This is the time for you to, up your calories a little bit. I did not have that at the start. So what happened was I went for a cut for so long because I kept telling myself that I was fine. It wasn't a problem. And I started dipping into things that people don't know about sometimes. And we're talking bulimia, we're talking anorexia. Yeah. I looked at myself in the mirror every day because I had a check-in. I had to send my photos to you, I had to send videos to you. And every day, the day of my shoot, anyone who's seen my pictures will say that you look pretty lean. I remember looking at myself in the mirror thinking this isn't good enough.
Yeah.
That is mad. I'd lost 40 kg. And I said to myself that this isn't good enough. My girlfriend at the time was looking at me going, you look ill. You don't look good. You look ill. And I was like, it's just not good enough. I still have some bit around my stomach. I'm not happy about that. And what happened was I got into a state where if I went over my calories, my 1,600 calories, I was contemplating sticking fingers down my throat.
Yeah.
That is the moment where I would have then said, listen, I need help.
That's really important in the sense that, like, if you're going to do something like that, i.e. whether it's a bodybuilding competition, whether it's a photo shoot in some respect, it has to be for the right reasons, because also you mentally do become so solely focused on just how you look. And then it's kind of like by what cost? At what cost, right? So essentially, like, with regards to it, it's, again, another reason why you should have someone guiding you through it that is an expert in that respect, because your body is going to override your feelings, and therefore you're going to, maybe potentially succumb to like an eating disorder, which is not healthy, succumb to body dysmorphia, which is not healthy, and all these things that kind of get in the way of actually the reason why we was doing it in the first place, which is we want to show how good we look for one moment in time, which is just a photo. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's it.
It can be in the initial, like, cutting down to 10% body fat. Wow, cool, I got a picture of myself. To just getting healthier. The whole point of getting healthier is so that you can sustain this habit. Yeah. If you're just going down there, with the photo shoot, it's different. You go down there for one moment in time to get a picture, to compete, and then you go back. But the most important part is you've then done something to your hormones and to your balances and to your metabolism, which means that people seem to think that I took them photos and went, right, free, let's go eat.
That's you for life. No,
you can't, because A, you can't live there, but B, if you go back to whatever you want to eat after that, your metabolism is slowed down slowly but surely for so long that your body all of a sudden goes, right, food, but your metabolism isn't what it was, which means you're going to take that food and you're going to store that food. So a lot of the time, people who doesn't have a PT and doesn't have someone helping them, the reverse dieting process is as hard, if not harder, than the actual dieting process. Because what happens is your body goes, well, you don't have a goal now, do you?
Yeah.
You've taken your photos. You look good in them photos. Who cares? So what happens is you then start eating for what you want to eat and how much you want to eat. And you haven't let that metabolism catch up with you slowly but surely, which means you gain twice as much weight as you had before you started. Now, then you go back to maybe worse off than where you were. And then before you know it, you're twice the size again, and you've lost all motivation. And you might also have picked up an eating disorder along the way.
And is exactly what, I mean, this is cheekiest plug in the world, but it's exactly what I coach in the elite coaching program, which is basically the diet after the diet, right? We will go into that on a much longer scale when we have you back on this channel. Essentially, we can talk all things because you're a PT, we're best friends, so we definitely will have a pairing of this nature at future points. We'll have other guests and stuff like that, but
no, just me now.
But to push on, just because we're a little bit stuck for time now. There's two things that 10 minutes. We got 10 minutes. He gave us the magic 10 fingers, and well, is a thumb a finger? It's not, is it?
Well, if we have 10 minutes left, are we going to discuss if a thumb is a finger or not?
No. Right, cool. Moving on. Thank you for that. So, just a quick question, mate. In general, what are you most looking forward to?
Living my life. And that sounds so cheesy. But, you know, after the lockdown thing, when I started my cut and I did this and I got into this fitness journey, became a PT and stuff, now my lifestyle is that. I get 10,000 steps in minimum a day. I sleep 8 hours a night, and it's so important. You can ask my missus. It's like, if I don't get 8 hours, I will punch something. Not someone, something. Because I need my 8 hours. I need my 2 to 3 liters of water a day. Like, it's my lifestyle. So reading all these books about what people have achieved, like I've just finished Ant Middleton's Zero Negativity type of stuff.
Great
and
book.
It's just, I'm looking forward to living my life. I've met the love of my life. I met her in lockdown. Greatest moments in time. And I'm just looking forward to living it with her, doing my thing. And as I said, I made sure that I was sorted. I bought myself a flat. Most things that I have now, I'm able to, because I'm in a lucky position where I can buy it outright because of the way I'm with money. I'm saving and I've done, you know, things that I need to do early on, which means I can live and afford to not have a job for X amount of time, or just do side jobs and do like stuff like this that I want to do. And I'm just looking forward to living it. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm in my 30s now, early 30s. Let's put that out there.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward. I'm exploring things. Like me and the missus, we love traveling. Went to Iceland. We went to Portugal recently. We're both PTs. You know, we do all these things. We went to see Book of Mormon last night, which was brilliant. We went to see you last week. You know, I can afford to do things because of the way I have conducted my earlier stages of my life. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what's to come.
Yeah.
Am I going to be in a musical soon? Am I not? It doesn't matter, because the stuff I do when I'm not in a musical is also very rewarding.
Yeah.
Because I'm not stuck to something that I don't like.
That's great. That's great, mate. I love that. And here's to your future. I love that. Right. Quick fire round.
Right.
We're just going to wrap it up. And this is without being overly descriptive. We can go in a little bit of detail, but just be adamant that we got just under 10 minutes left now.
Right.
So I'm just going to ask these questions to you.
Okay.
You're just going to spit them out. Anthony, if you want to chip in at any point, by all means, in terms of like whatever he has to say as an answer. But yeah, I'm just going to spit them out and you will go.
Spit away.
So Chris.
Yeah.
What is your favourite word?
Divine.
Divine.
Because I always thought it meant something bad.
Okay.
And it took me 3 years to realise that it doesn't. It's a good thing.
So explain to me, like, how would you say divine in a sentence before you knew what the actual meaning of it was?
Well, someone would say that was absolutely divine, and I would think it was a bad thing. And I'd go, oh, that's weird. It's a bit like Joey from Friends. When they say something about, it's abysmal. And he goes, yeah, that was me. And now if someone said that at college, but that was divine. And I'd be like, oh, I don't understand. I loved it. I think the word sounds negative. It sounds like decline, or it sounds like something that, so I don't know. I just didn't know the word. So I went, all right, didn't like it. Fair enough.
Love it. Okay. This might be interesting then. So what is your least favourite word?
No.
Ah.
I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on. Explain why.
No. I've got two. No and pomegranate. No, because it's so negative.
Yeah.
Everything about that word is negative. No one has ever said no and you've gone, that's a positive. It might be a positive outcome for what you said no to, but no in general. I feel like there are other words you can sub that with. And pomegranate, because I spent, 7, 8 years in England and in America, not realizing that it wasn't pronounced pomegranate. Yeah, and no one told me. So I called a pomegranate for 7 or 8 years until I went up to a bar to get a pomegranate cocktail, and someone said, "What?" And I said, "Pomegranate, you know, thingy." No, but it's pomegranate. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh no,
that's absolutely the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It sounds so much cooler as a pomegranate.
Well, it's spelled pomegranate.
Yeah,
and it's also like same with Chihuahua.
Yeah,
Chihuahua. It should be Chihuahua.
Yeah.
Not Chihuahua.
Yeah.
No.
And then, you know, we spend 3 years going, right, mate, you have to say this and that with your tongue between your teeth, which we don't do in Norway or Germany. Yeah. And then I go, right, so let's go to Thailand. I can't say that. Great, you're making absolutely no sense.
English is dumb. It's one of the dumbest languages ever.
Historically
it
speaking,
makes no sense.
Yeah.
No sense.
Absolutely. All right, next one. What turns you on?
My missus.
Okay. Don't need to go into that too much. I mean, unless you want to, you know.
I mean, honestly, I mean, she probably will be listening because she's obviously, you know, intrigued. But listen, and that's why I find it so mad, not to go back into what we've spoken about. But imagine me being on my cut, being so low in body fat percentage. I have the fittest person around, walking around in all kinds of clothes, and it doesn't turn me on. That tells you how the body is an effed up place sometimes.
Yeah.
Because honestly, anything she does these days now, I'm like, let's go. And it's,
Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Here's a fun fact for you.
Yep.
Did you know that if you bit on your bottom lip and you couldn't breathe in or breathe out?
You're not going to make me look stupid. I've seen these videos. I'm not going to bite my bottom lip on your podcast.
Oh, so close.
Very
so
good.
close.
That was good.
So close. Okay, what turns you off?
Ooh, what turns me off? Mess. Mess turns me off.
Like a messy room, or just mess in general?
Just
like
mess.
When someone's life is a mess, or like...
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay.
If something's not structured and laid out in front of you in a nice way, even if it's folders on your MacBook or folders on your Windows, whatever it is, it turns me off straight away. If you don't have your stuff sorted, if you don't have... And it doesn't have to be a good... Like your finances. It doesn't mean... I don't need a lot of money. I just need it to be sorted.
Yeah.
Know when it's being paid. It's being paid when it's being paid. Your salary comes in then, so you're going to spend this money then. I don't know. I just need something to be structured. If the pillows on my sofa isn't puffed properly when you've finished sitting on it, that does my head in.
Okay.
Yeah. And my missus has a thing of sitting in the sofa as if she's a monkey. She can't sit with her legs on the floor like a normal person. She's like all kinds of... Yeah, and I'm like, right.
What sound or noise do you love?
Coffee machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You love your coffee.
When my coffee machine is on, even if it's not me having the coffee, I go, yes.
Amazing.
It's time. Yeah.
I love that. What sound or noise do you hate?
Alarms. Any alarm. Alarm to wake me up in the morning. Alarm from a business that's being broken into or something just triggering it. Any alarm. Alarms are meant for your brain to go, something's wrong.
Yeah, I don't favour an alarm. And I hate the alarm system for giving you the snooze button. I think it's like personally, I think it's one of the worst inventions ever made. Why have an alarm that you can then delay it for another time? We all use it, right? We all fucking use it. But,
that's the thing.
But I mean, I don't. But essentially, I think it's just a dodgy form of like delaying like what it is that you were originally setting out to do, which is either get up or do something. They've
given you an excuse button. So I don't use the snooze button because I taught myself very early on in my fitness journey that was a habit that I was to get rid of ASAP. And what I did with it was I put my phone so far away that I have to get up to turn it off.
That's it. That is a big hack. Like set yourself an alarm, but then for you to turn it off, you have to actually get to that alarm away from your bed.
And then ask yourself, we've all had this, right? There are certain circumstances where maybe you wake up and you go, actually, I have another 30 minutes. I could be sleeping. When you do opt in for them 30 minutes and you wake up after 30 minutes, you feel as shit as you did when you first thought, yes, I got another 30 minutes. So why do the 30 minutes? I have an 8-hour gap where I sleep. If that means I wake up at 6 a.m. because I've had my 8 hours, because sometimes the missus is up early, so we just go to bed early, I will not sleep the 10 hours.
No.
I will wake up at 6 a.m. and I will do something.
Yeah, you're ready. You're ready to go.
And my body's had what it needs to recover, so do something productive.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is playing FIFA, which isn't productive, but at least I'm doing something and not sleeping.
What is your favourite curse word?
Cunt.
Great.
Do you know why?
Go.
Because I didn't know how much of a meaning that has in this country until I said it out loud in front of people, and people went, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And I went, "What? It's just a word." But for you guys, it's not just a word. It is the most...
That's the for me, the most profound curse word you could say especially in this country.
For anyone in the UK, but I didn't realize that because I was taught that as everything else. I was taught that as pomegranate. I was taught that as everything else. I was like, it's when you get upset, you go fuck or you go cunt. And now when I say, oh yeah, he's a proper cunt, even if that person is a bad person, anyone who's just slagged him off will go, you can't say that.
Yeah.
Bit far.
Yeah. And I'll be like, really? We just talked shit about him for an hour.
I think it's an interesting word because I kind of disagree with you actually in terms of the way we use it in the country and how people react to it. Because I think, well, it just might be the circles I'm in, but like if I'll talk about Josh and he says something funny, you're like, oh, he's a funny cunt.
Yeah.
So I use it in a positive. I don't think I've ever said. No, I do say it in a bad way, but most of the time, it's in a positive way.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Yeah, I've never really. I've never been offended by words. I think it's ridiculous to be offended by words because if someone said it to you in a different language, it wouldn't make any sense and you wouldn't be offended because it's a word. Anyway, but yeah, I think cunt's an interesting one. Yeah.
But that's why it's weird because that would confuse me as a foreigner because you would use it in a positive sense.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, you silly cunt. And I'd be like, Gemma. But because of that, I would then be like, so that's a positive thing. So why can't I say, oh, he's a cunt, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? And then he'd be like, you can't call him that. And I'd be like, well, we use the word in a positive sense as well, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
But it is. Sometimes I've dropped that word just by coincidence, and people be like, oh.
Well, when you do it in an old people's home, it's not great.
Yeah,
Chris,
I don't tend to spend a lot of time in old people's homes. But,
anymore,
yeah, all the time.
Since saying cunt out loud.
Yeah, they banned me 500 meters from any old people's homes.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Ooh, what profession other than my own? Ooh, that's a tough one. I am in my profession because that's exactly what I wanted to do and nothing else. Do you know what? I'm not going to say a profession. I'm going to say whatever it is that I want to do. So the problem I have with my occupation is that that's my passion. People say, oh, how long are you going to be doing that for? And I'd be like, no, it's not a question. I have to do it. It's what I want to do.
Lifelong.
There is no other profession that at the moment in time I say I want to do that. But I wish, if I could change, I wish I was really, really wanting to be a doctor.
Okay.
Because then I would be one by now.
Yeah.
I did 6 years.
I was going to say, you did the time.
Yeah.
Committed to learning something.
Yeah. But I can't think of anything worse. Bless the doctors, by the way. I can't think of anything worse than listening to people moan. Because you'll get 10% of people who genuinely need your help. And you get 90% of people who go, and my finger hurts. And you'd be like, listen, I need to spend this time on people who actually needs my help. I can't think of anything worse. In a white lit hall with my white robe going, God, here we go again. So I wish I would have loved that because the income would be great and I'd love my job. And
it's a job for life, being a doctor. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I can't imagine there'll be a generation where there's AI doctors that are replacing just like human interaction as a doctor. I don't know. I might not. I don't want to live to see that.
No.
What profession would you not like to do?
9 to 5, sat behind a desk, same commute every day, same office, not really working for yourself, but working for some corporates where they tell you to put this in that, and that's all you do.
Sounds
couldn't be clearer.
Non-debatable for sure. Okay, last question. If heaven exists, what would you like God to hear? What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Silly cunt. No, I think if God exists, he's got a lot of explaining to do.
Okay.
No offense. We're talking people who are walking around without food.
So you be interrogating him rather than him.
Yeah, I'd go, mate, what are you on about? Like, why would I come here and go, mate, fist bump? Like, I'd be like, I'd call him a cunt straight away. No, honestly, because I'm like, if he does exist, no offense, I love the belief system because we all have something that we believe in and all that stuff. But if he exists, why are we sat here? Why was COVID a thing? Why is people without food at the moment? Why is there war in Ukraine?
Yeah,
does not make sense to me. So I'm an atheist, as you can clearly tell. But if he does exist, we got a podcast coming.
Yeah,
Lord have mercy.
Let's set up a podcast with God.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you for coming on, Chris. We will be seeing you again on here for sure. My best mate. He's going to be my best man at my wedding. So you will be seeing a lot more of him. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. All right,
Thank
cheers.
you. Until next time.
If you like to listen to this or watch this, or if you liked what you listened to, be sure to give it a like, give it a subscribe, rate it if you are on the podcast levels of Spotify, Google, Apple. I don't know what else, but basically there's a distributor where it just like distributes to all the podcast channels. If whatever channel you're listening to it on, please give feedback, give it a rating. And if you're watching this, please sure to give this channel a subscribe, a like, and thank you very much.